From licking Sean Mooney to having one of the most famous wrestling walks in the world, we're talking about the Bushwhackers right here on Prime Time with Sean Mooney. And I swear, we did not plan on both doing this together, and that's
Yeah.
amazing. How are
How
you
can you
doing
not?
today?
Oh, bloody lovely matey. G'day there, Steve.
Good day. Good
Love the
day.
Bushwhackers.
Oh,
They
yeah.
are really what a pair. I mean, uh, what was there not to like about the Bushwhackers? And they really, looking back, and if all you did was look at their career with the WWF, you'd really have no idea what these two guys were about.
True.
Because whoa, mateys, they were just this ball of fire whenever they came out anywhere. But prior to getting to the WWF, and I'm sure we'll get into it, they were known as one of the most notorious, violent. They loved the juice. Every match that they were involved in, all you had to do was look at their forehead to see the map of the world that they had carved on it, traveling all over the globe, and just nowhere near what you would expect. And you have to imagine what in the world was Vince McMahon thinking when they came in. But certainly one of the most beloved tag teams ever. And they fit right in at the time of what was happening with the World Wrestling Federation because it was all about family entertainment.
Yeah.
And Vince was looking for these characters that the kids would enjoy seeing. And, in a lot of ways, it was brilliant marketing because instead of getting these, hardcore fans, which were certainly locked into these other territories where you'd get, heavy male audience.
Oh, yeah.
These guys, and one or two, you might go with a friend of yours. Well, how brilliant is it that they made it so that, mom, it wasn't just dad, it was dad, mom, and all the kids. Well,
Bring grandma.
probably averaged out to at least 5 tickets. And yeah, even grandma with the rubber chicken that she would bring. So that's what it was all about. But I'm sure when they got that phone call in 1988, they were thinking, because they'd been waiting for years to try and get in. Luke tells the story of how he would send these beta tapes. If you remember, you will, because you come from a production background. But back then, it wasn't just the VHS; they had the beta VHS. Maybe down under, that's what they had was the standard. But he talks about sending tape after tape after tape to Senior, trying to get into the WWF. Which we know would become the WWF, and not getting much of a return at all. And then one day they get a call from a guy named Pat Patterson, and they had no idea. It wasn't even the message left was just called us about wrestling opportunity, and picks up the phone and calls Pat, and Pat tells him there's a guy here who wants to talk to you, and it was Vince McMahon telling them, say, hey, and I guess Luke was the one who kind of handled business affairs, and told them, "Hey, we want you to come up here and chat with us." And they did the whole business of first class tickets to New York, the limo's waiting, and they get whisked off to Stamford, and Vince lays it out. But can you imagine, Steve? Here you are. Known to be just this brutal tag team, and you think, okay, we're finally getting this opportunity. We're going to go up there and we're going to battle, so these other tag teams that like to go at it, and we're all in. And that was not the plan Vince McMahon had for them.
Yeah, it's interesting to think because you brought it up. Bloodthirsty, the Sheepherders, they were the Kiwis,
yeah.
and they're known for brutality. And then out of nowhere, if you saw what they were doing in, say, 1987 versus 1988, where you have them, hey, we're going to lick your head and do this, and sardines, we love them, we love them. Like, what a contrast between characters. And we've seen it before where, mean Mark Callis turns into The Undertaker, where they're the same person, but they're not the same characters. The Sheepherders and the Bushwhackers might look the same, but they do not act the same.
Not at all. And they talk about some of these matches that they had along the way before they arrived in in the WWF where they would go to Puerto Rico or
Oh yeah.
some of these other places and do these barbed wire matches. Now, I don't know if you've ever gotten a chance to see some of these folks, but my God, these matches are just brutal because not only do they use items wrapped in barbed wire, the ropes were barbed wire. You can imagine going into those ropes. You're just going to get sliced and diced, and it was real barbed wire, and so there might be this much of a spike, but that's going into your skin. And if you move and it's tearing, I mean, these guys would just get ripped to pieces. And of course, it's all a work, but at the same time, you're still doing this. And some of these matches they'd wrap the guy in barbed wire, and they're this nasty heel tag team going in there from down under, and people hated them. Where they said that it was life and death in many of these situations, trying to get out of these ballparks. They used to have these events at ballparks, and these small little stadiums that they had there. They had a lot of baseball stadiums and that kind of thing, and they would have these matches where thousands of people would show up. And they would get so much heat that these people wanted to kill them. And then, and there had been wrestlers that were killed by mobs there. It wasn't that unusual. Of course, we know the story with Bruiser Brody that,
Of course.
so it could get really, really dangerous there. And they would say they would bring, it wasn't just the cops, it was SWAT teams. And they recount a story where they were at the stadium, and the crowd was just so rabid and so determined that they wanted to kill them. They told the police, "If you stay here to protect them, we're gonna kill you too." And so the cops left them. They just took off. And they said, "Thank God that some of the boys that were working there and who were from Puerto Rico were able to get the crowd at least back enough so that they could get out of there." But they talked about them setting their dressing room on fire, their doors to their dressing room, and having to be taken out, hidden in vehicles. And Butch talks about getting a brick to the back of the head. That they're driving him out in a pickup truck. He's picking glass out of the back of his head. So just to, you really need to talk about that to be able to see the contrast of who these guys were at the time. And if you ever get a chance, there's some on YouTube of some of the Sheepherders matches. And you will see that they weren't this big jokey comedy team. No. They could mix it up, and they were tough as nails. And neither one of them, I don't know if I think they listed them at 5'10". I'm not quite sure if they were even that tall. They were fire hydrants as far as the way they were built, but not huge guys, but man, tough as nails. I mean, there's no question about these guys were just just made of leather, and they were tougher than hell. And fortunately, they came in '88. That's when I came in. So not that they were new to the business. I mean, these guys started wrestling in 1966, Steve. Right. 1966. They'd already been in the business over 20 years before they came to the WWF. But I hit it off with them because I played rugby in college at university. And so we kind of had that connection there. They loved to talk rugby. And I wasn't just, I didn't just step on the field. I played for 5 years. That extra year of college was all about that, Steve. It wasn't about the academics. It's
Are you sure?
I loved it. But
I feel like that's our other podcast, rugby. The next
but,
spinoff.
But that was what first connected us, and so as far as they were concerned, I was good. And they were just. I look through the archives, try and find somebody saying that they were, shit heels or something like that, that they weren't good people. Everybody loved Luke and Butch, but they were tough. If they had to mix it up, man, let's go. They were that's who they were, and man, what a duo.
It's amazing to hear the stories of the fans and their interactions with the sheepherders because talking about bricks to heads, people trying to
No,
stab you, we're gonna kill the police, get out of here, all this stuff. In different
yeah,
parts of the world, they treat wrestling completely different. Where you're talking about Puerto Rico, where it is this is real, this is sports, this is not predetermined. Like we're here to see a fight, we're gonna get a winner.
yeah,
Versus clearly in the WWF with Vince Senior and Vince McMahon, we're transitioning. We don't want that. We want you to come to the show and not be afraid to get hit by a brick because some guy is trying to attack a wrestler. Like it's completely night and day of
yeah.
bushwhackers, sheepherders, and the transition of we don't want people to be afraid of you. We want people to be happy when they see you, not try to hurt you and stab you and throw bricks at you. It's like the contrast of countries and states is so different in wrestling around
Yeah.
this time.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that it was we didn't have some of that here. I mean, you
Oh,
hear
of
about the
course.
stories
I'm
of
saying like
Mid
years
South that
later.
those where it was, Hacksaw talks about how they could tell what a good house it was going to be that night by how many fights happened before the matches did
Right.
out in the crowd. So yeah, you certainly that was always part of the business. But of course, it was night and day. You know, the WWF, we didn't have that. There weren't people at
Yep.
arenas inciting violence or anything like that. And as I mentioned, because it was very much geared towards family entertainment.
Yes.
And if there was any kind of rowdiness in the crowd, that was shut down in a hurry.
And that's what I'm
And,
talking
and
about. Like, what a
yeah,
difference, right?
we always had serious security. All those you'd see those guys in the yellow shirts with security on them, and if there was any kind of problem, that was eliminated immediately because that's they didn't want families to be afraid to come to these events.
Yeah.
So that was really important. But I wish I would have been in that meeting when those guys came up because, as I said, didn't go anyway the way they thought it was going to, and even Luke talks about how in the meeting, Vince says, I want you to be baby faces," and they're kind of like, I'm sure it was one of those where they nose to nose went,
That's exactly
bang,
what they did.
yeah, and because they probably never even thought of themselves of ever being baby faces. They were these mean, nasty, gnarly New Zealanders, and so and their first thought was, okay, well, because Luke had booking background or whatever, and said, hey, well, then we'll come in as heels and then you'll turn us. And no, that's not the plan. And at that time we would do the vignettes
Of course.
where they would shoot 3 weeks of stuff of whoever the character they're trying to put over. They do that for about 3 weeks, and then they put you out in a house show. You come out one of the TV tapings, and it's the music and everything. And to the crowds with the WWF, they weren't familiar with the Sheepherders. I'm sure there were some, of course, who were serious fans, but for the most part, and for the kids that were in these arenas, it was, oh my God, these guys are fun. These are, they're coming out and doing licking heads and
Right.
doing everything else they did, which they'd probably be arrested for now if they tried
Oh
to do
yeah.
that to some child in the crowd.
Let
But
me
it's
lick
all,
you. Like,
yeah, yeah,
ah!
right. Was they were immediately over. And if you think that they were thinking, oh my God, what are we doing? We can't believe this. How humiliating. You would be dead wrong. Both of them you would talk to. And I'm sure it just became more and more apparent to them that, first of all, they were making more money than they'd ever made. And they didn't have to do the kind of things they did before as far as the toll on their bodies. I mean, they would do, the comedic basic moves, the battering ram
Yeah.
thing that was
Bite your ass.
ridiculous. Yeah. And march around the arena and just play to the crowd. And so, and look what it did for them as far as the rest of their career, where, if they would have remained the sheep herders or, whatever this nasty tag team, first of all, you don't make near as much money because you're a bad guy. that may have changed somewhat as we know how we blurred the lines on those. But the baby faces, is especially with the merchandising, and I know you're going to talk about a visit to the White House coming up. That
Mm.
they, I mean, really, did you think those two ever thought they were going to end up at the White House? But it just made sense with their character, as you said about who are they going to send. So we'll talk about that. But in as far as them coming in, and it wasn't even though they made them this comedic team, they still could work. The guys were very good in the ring, and when they needed to go to work, they did. But as far as making that transition to being, in a sense, comedians, they were naturals.
Oh yeah, and those vignettes you bring up too, where one of them is like with Mean Gene, and
Hmm.
they're talking to him. And he's like, "Oh, sardines, we love sardines." And then another one,
Sardines, yeah,
they're
sardines.
they're at a restaurant and they're just eating all the food. Another one is like they go to, I think, a dress shop and just, "Oh, what's this? I don't know." Like these weird
Yeah,
introductions to this comedic group, and then they do make their WWE debut on December 26th of 1988 against the Bolsheviks. And thankfully, the Bushwhackers win. But when they come down, even the commentary, like I watched this the other day, and when they come down, the commentary is even like, "Look at them, they're having the best time of their life," because they're in there dancing
yeah,
and they're doing the battering ram. Like I don't think anyone expected that because right in this point in the WWF in 1988, the tag team division is the best wrestlers in the world. The
yeah,
Bushwhackers don't have to be called the best tag team. They can be your favorite tag team because you're not going to get 5-star classics. You're going to get comedic wrestling, but be entertained. So I think
yeah.
that's the argument I have with like, who's your favorite tag team? Like, well, my favorite is difference between who's the best, and the Bushwhacker is coming in right away. The fans love them.
Yeah, and it was a crowded field, as you mentioned, and everybody wants to be on top. But with that gimmick, they didn't have to be. They were so over. And if you look back and add up all their victories, they were, you know, I would say, right near the top of the winningest duos ever. Because when they went to these house shows, what are you going to do? You're going to make they're there to entertain the kids that you
Yes.
want at these house shows. You're going to have them lose. So on all these house shows, in many cases, they did have they would have a feud here and there, but for the most part, they're over. They're winning.
Yes.
So did they have any? Did they ever get the straps? No. But did they need them? No, they didn't. And
Definitely
and
not.
you know, uh, they knew that wasn't in the cards. Even if they did hand them the belts, how long do you think they would have had them? So
A
it
month.
wasn't for them to. They just want stay in the mix, stay at the high mid card, and just keep doing what you're doing. And as far as long as they see these crowd reacting to them, and they're not tiring of them, and you put them out there, and it was a winning combination. And I'm sure they realized that it was easy, in a sense, easy money because they weren't. And don't get me wrong, they're still going to get banged up,
Right.
but not like what they had gone through before they came to the WWF. And not only that, with all I did a ton of personal appearances with them where we would go. And who do you think's getting that call? These guys to go and be at whatever event is going on.
Yeah.
The fans love them. So they're getting the call on that. The numbers of their merchandise was tremendous. And when you sell an action figure, you're selling two of them.
Hmm.
So all the way around, their T-shirts, their hats. Remember the ripped hats that they
Oh
actually
yeah.
sold like with a bite out of them.
They were
Really, that
hungry.
that all the way around, and they're getting a piece of that. Then I don't. It wasn't as big as it would become, but they're getting a piece of it.
Oh yeah.
So for
Oh,
them, it was the greatest thing that ever happened to them as a tag team.
we bring up the merchandise too, is because as a kid I had the blankets, and on the blankets you'd Hulk Hogan, and Macho Man, Ultimate
Hmm.
Warrior, Bushwhackers. The
Yeah,
Bushwhackers were on all the sheets, all the pillowcases, all the blankets. So if you bought the set from whatever store, they were there. So again, Legion of Doom sometimes, depending on what year, but the Bushwhackers were very profiled in all the merchandise that include multiple superstars because they were
Yeah.
recognizable too. It wasn't like, oh, this mean bad guy. Like these guys, the walk, we're all doing this
Right.
walk and they're licking
Wasn't
people.
complicated.
No,
Yeah.
it was very
Yeah.
easy, and especially their gimmick too.
Yeah.
I want to really break down that because they are a perfect fit for what's happening in the WWF. We had everything. We had a Birdman. We had a guy with a snake. Like we had people who had masks on. It was the perfect thing. Like, what's your thing? Well, we do this and we lick people. Perfect. Like you fit in with what
Yeah.
we're doing here. Some people felt a little off. You're like, what's this rooster doing here? Or like sometimes I felt like Bad News Brown also felt a little off. It was like everyone, you had a model, you had so much going on. I just feel like it was perfect for what was going on in the WWF at that time. And let's talk about it. The licking and this. Hacksaw Jim Duggan has the ho.
Oh,
People
yeah.
still do it. But the shit people still know what you're doing when you do that. Like
Well, hear
that's
that
iconic.
music. Yeah. You hear that music, well, you're going to start pumping your arms
Yep.
if you were a fan. And also, which, yeah, I'm sure that this had something to do with it, that Vince would, pounce on things that were popular at the time. But what was out then, I think when they came, like Crocodile Dundee had been huge when it hit
Mm-hmm.
the United States, and I think that when they came in, like Crocodile Dundee 2, the sequel was out, and so that culture that people had never really known about, but on the Bobby and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
shrimp on the Bobby and that whole and that sense of humor, that Australian, New Zealand, and of course they're very different. I know that.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah,
I think Crocodile
but
Dundee is some from somewhere else, but I don't
but
know.
still, but as far as the people here in the United States concerned, it's down under, and they got that accent, mate, matey, bloody lovely. And so they're eating it up, and so the timing of it all the way around was just fantastic, and where they were able to ride that for
Yeah.
years.
Yep.
Yeah,
And their first big WrestleMania involves you though, because their first rivalry is with the Fabulous Rougeaus, and these
yeah.
guys will wrestle throughout '88 and '89. But we get to WrestleMania 5, and they win their match against the Rougeaus. Hooray! Right? And you get to be at your first WrestleMania 2. You get to do a little commentary. You get to do a little. Oh, what's going on? The Bushwhackers lick you. They grab you in the
Yeah.
aisleway and lick you down. And you actually make a joke about you ever have I think it was a happy dog at
So you
home,
have
maybe.
your favorite dog. Yeah, feeling been
Lick your
licked by
face.
your favorite dog.
What was it like, Mr. Mooney? Can you tell me what it's like to be licked by a bushwhacker?
Well, I'll tell you that honestly, they didn't tell me they were going to do that. I mean, I knew it was
Oh,
part of their shtick, but I didn't really expect them to do that. And if you look at it, and they say they're coming down the ring, from the ring, and you see them coming up behind me, and I think I'm interacting with the crowd there, and then they just maul me, and it's just like it's a massive like, and I mentioned too that I had that stupid earpiece that they had that
mm-hmm.
it wasn't a preformed earpiece. It was just one of these ones that they have in the truck that anybody can wear them, but they're awful because all they have is a little hook that goes over your ear and then the
Yeah.
plug that goes into your ear, and they don't know that. And I got the big long cable. They didn't have the wireless mics then, and so everything just out. I think I can't hear anything. And I just know that at some point they're going to stop doing this, and then I'll just throw it back. Yeah. So then I throw it back to Gorilla and said, "Do you ever have a favorite dog?" That's basically what it felt like. I said, "I'm going to go find a towel." so, but yeah, I was not. I had a I not that I didn't think they were going to do not going they were going to mess with me. I knew that, but I didn't know. I mean, if you look, they laid it in, and I'm
Oh
sure
yeah.
that Vince, you know told them really take it to them. This is your chance to show people who you really are, and it's your stage, and milk it. And boy, did they! But
Yes.
it's quite an experience, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how many people are on the globe. There's many of us, but not that many when you that have been actually licked by both bushwhackers. So
Oh wow! Now
hear
that's
that.
interesting. I thought you were gonna say licked. I was like, little kids have been licked by bushwhackers for years, but both at the
That was a
same
washing. Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
That's
So
a world record. It sounds like we got to get Guinness involved here.
I always wondered like how they came up with it. Hey, we're gonna lick him. Okay. Like,
Well, so you know what's weird is like I was doing some research when they were the sheepherders, they were crazy and they would sort of lick each other, but in a
yeah.
weird like weird like oh this is kind of bizarre. Why are you licking
What
him?
is that? Yeah.
Yeah, like why you're so crazy. You're like yeah, oh yeah. But then when you get to the WWF, it's like we're gonna try to lick people in a
People.
fun
Yeah.
way. Like every time when I remember when COVID happened, and I just thought to myself like, well, that gimmick wouldn't work today, would it? Like you
Oh my
can't go
God, no. Yeah.
get the saliva away from me.
Lawsuits, yes. What did
Yeah.
you? My child developed a serious
He can't
New
stop
Zealand
walking like
rash.
this. My my kids are stuck doing this all day. But so you're telling me at WrestleMania 5 there was no set plan of like, hey Mooney, you know, do a little in and out in the aisleway after the Bushwhackers. They're gonna mess with you a little bit, and then you're gonna toss out. Like they didn't tell you that
Basically,
part.
that's it. And they're going to say, you know what they would tell me, they'll do a little business with you.
Oh,
Now that could be, you know, that could be them messing my hair up or something like that, or getting a shower with tongues, you know. So it's or a bath with tongues. Uh, they're not going to lay it. They're not going to explain it to you. It's
oh,
just don't
okay.
do it.
I
Yeah,
thought they'd be like, all right, they're gonna do this to you, and
yeah.
then you'll
And
get
they
around.
didn't know either. You know, it's just they're going to do some business with you.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
just be ready. Just be ready and roll with it. And
Wow.
that's exactly what I did.
You
Became part
did.
of a special club that day.
Yeah, that's right. God damn it.
Yeah,
You know, the
yeah,
SNL has a five timers club. You're part of the two-time lick time club. So I
yeah,
don't know who else is in it, but someone is out there with that
yeah. There's a
jacket.
lot of us, and
Wow.
we don't stay in
Craziness.
touch, but we know we're out there.
Does it chain email? No one really
Yeah,
responds to anymore.
there's no convention. It's not
Okay.
like the Cauliflower Club. It's not like
There's none
that.
of that. Wow.
Yeah,
All right.
but
Okay.
we know who we are.
Oh, good. I'm power to you. Power to you. But yes, besides you being licked at WrestleMania 5, the Bushwhackers did defeat the Rougeaus. And then they continue to fight the Rougeaus throughout the year. They even go
Mhm.
into Survivor Series 1989 on opposite teams. And I love these teams because listen to these crazy assholes together, all right? So you got the Rude Brood, which is a great team. Rick Rude, Mr.
Yeah,
Perfect, and the Fabulous Rougeaus. Great team, right?
yeah,
They
yeah.
defeat, try saying this three times fast, Roddy's. It's Roddy Piper, Jimmy Snuka, and the Bushwhackers. And backstage, you have Piper with the Bushwhackers and Snuka, and they're eating turkey carcasses, and they're just sitting there talking about them bones, those big bones. Dude, I couldn't get enough of the Bushwhackers with Snuka and Piper together as a team. That to me, winning combo for fans, not for a match, but for
Yeah.
fans.
Yeah, and what a combination. Uh, and the thing with Snuka is that as far as doing promos and that kind of thing, he was very limited. I mean,
He was doing a lot of whoo, whoo,
yeah, there
whoo.
was that he wasn't really that wasn't his thing.
No,
And so you need to do something like that. You got to come up with some kind of novel idea, and that was that was part of it. But I always sometimes just think like, where does this shit come from? Who decided this? You know that that's a good idea with the bones and the chickens and
right. Like, all right, we got to do something with Piper here. Piper's gonna play with these carcasses, and we're gonna
yeah,
have the Bushwhackers who are crazy. They'll eat them, and Snuka, he's from the jungle, so he'll eat them too, and then
yeah.
there
And
we
Roddy
go.
was always out there, so you never really knew what to expect with him either. You know, that was just yeah, he would have been they talk about like improv. Well,
Oh yeah,
Roddy would have been, here you are, go. And that's kind of the way Roddy was. Whatever the situation, he would just look around and find something that he could use. And so you got him involved in the scene. You're going to be okay one way or the
well,
other. He's gonna.
it's also Survivor Series, so I'm guessing Piper's like going to catering. He's like, oh, I need this and I need that, and then he's just
Yeah,
taking all the
yeah,
food. Like
yeah,
people like
yeah. Bring that. Okay.
like
Yeah.
Brooklyn Brawler's trying to eat. Like, excuse me, can you? I'm trying to eat this carcass. Please leave me
Uh.
alone. Or the rooster. Maybe the rooster was doing that. But
The rooster probably would have stayed away. He might end up getting in,
I get been eaten.
might have taken him apart limb by limb.
That's true. That's true. I love it. But Survivor
gnawing
Series,
on the rooster.
I love Survivor Series, and I love those team names as well. And I think again, the combos of putting them together, more Rougeaus, more Bushwhackers, and then even Royal Rumble 1990, the Bushwhackers defeat the fabulous Rougeaus. Again, this would be the
Yeah.
Rougeaus' last match in the WWF. We did do a deep dive on the Rougeaus and why it ended, but I would think the Rougeaus also weren't a comedy team, but they would react in a comedic way. So them working with the Bushwhackers to me fits perfectly in the realm of, I can understand why each team could beat each other versus the Bushwhackers aren't going to beat Demolition, or the
Yeah.
Rougeaus aren't going to beat a certain team because they're both in the same ranks of we're both kind of comedy, but we're also good at what we're doing in the ring.
Yeah, and it was what the WWF was all about then. It was these bigger than life kind of cartoon characters in a sense. And so, yeah, you could have both of them and their like, what you call their form of comedy or whatever they were was very different. The Bushwhackers were the lovable duo that could be take get in the ring with anybody and battle them. The Rougeaus, it was that kind that was they think they're over and yet they're just they're this kind of a joke of absurdity that they look at it that they're they love us
They love
when they're
America.
in, but they're also in on the joke too. We're fooling them. They think we really are love America, or
Yeah.
so their approach to it. But that's just the way the WWF was then. We did have all of these characters that were bigger than life. Every one of them. You just go down the list when you look at the natural disasters.
Yep. Nasty
Two
Boys.
gigantic human beings in outrageous tights, right? And so
Yes.
that's just the way that's the way it was. Everybody had a super gimmick. It wasn't just a lot of times you'd see in some of these other territories, the guys have whatever their gimmick is, but that's it. They go in there and they just wrestle. That's not what the WWF was. That was the storylines and over the top. Everything was over the top, and and at the same time, you mentioned they feuded with Jacques and Ray for a long time. And if they couldn't work, if they weren't good workers, then people would have tired of that. The
Yes.
act goes so far, then you do have to be able to handle yourself in the ring. And if you really did pay attention to some of those matches, especially like the house shows too, where they would get some time to be able to be in the ring and they might do, 10, 15-minute matches with them. Well, you can't just go marching around the ring the whole time and do a battering ram. You got to go in there and you got to work. And these guys, they get up on the ropes. They could deliver clotheslines. They could body slam these guys. They could do it all. And so it wasn't all just hijinks
Right,
the
right,
whole
right.
time. Yeah,
True.
they had
Yeah,
to be
no.
able to work too. And those two certainly proved it before they got there. But they had their moments where they were able to really show people that they weren't this joke comedy team all the time. They could work.
Well, after the Bushwhackers were done wiping the floor with the Rougeaus, they move on to my favorite tag team, Rhythm and Blues, Greg Valentine with black hair. And at WrestleMania 6, they performed their brand new hit song, Hunka 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 Honka Love. And you were also in the crowd that evening, going to random patrons in the audience, asking them if they're excited for it. And I didn't really find many people excited
Yeah.
for them performing. And I think that is that the night you also talked to Mary Tyler Moore, and
Yeah, we
maybe
were.
and she's maybe, but you go to multiple fans and you're asking
Yeah.
them, and they have no idea the song. You're like, no, 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 it's for honkas. And they're like, I know the
Yeah, right.
band.
Yeah, that was a tough assignment because try as they might, and uh, Greg Valentine had his bit. That was about all he was. His range was the blonde guy with the hammer. That I know it's one of your favorites.
Well,
That
I'm
they
not sure if it's actually one of my
Peggy
favorites. It's more.
Sue and Peggy
Oh,
Sue and yeah.
oh yeah.
But yeah, you could just tell, right? When in the interviews, the people are like, yeah, yeah, sure, it's great, yeah, but kind of a wah wah wah. I loved Honky, that Honky Tonk
Yeah,
Man, whatever all
yeah.
his bit and whatever he would do, but When they tried to push this, I just didn't, just never really went over as far as I was concerned.
No, and they're
Yeah.
performing their big hit song here at the Sky Dome, but two random people in the audience are selling merchandise and popcorn and drinks. It turns out it's the Bushwhackers.
Yeah.
They're in the audience and they distract, they get in the ring, they beat up rhythm and blues, they get tossed out, and everyone in the crowd gets to do this together and hear the music and everyone's happy. So we're off to the races with that storyline, and that keeps going
Mhm.
until, Greg Valentine probably was like, I'm done dyeing my hair.
Yes,
It's
I'm
falling
going to be
out.
the blonde I am that
Yes.
I dyed my hair blonde.
How
I want
dare
to, I'm
you?
not, this dyeing my hair black is not going to stand.
No, but I'll continue to dye it blonde.
Blonde, that's, I'm a
Wait, are you
bleached
a
blonde.
redhead? I want to know.
Yeah.
Like something must be going wrong up there.
Yeah.
But the Bushwhackers, they do get a championship title shot in '91 against the Nasty Boys, who recently won the belt, and they lose. And again, I don't. We brought it up before with other people. Some people need a championship, but the Bushwhackers, I don't know. They just were a package to me. They didn't need that. Like even Jake the Snake, I know people were gonna disagree. He had the snake. What the
Mhm.
hell does he need a championship for too? Coco had
Yeah.
the bird. All these little things you have are what make you special. Giving you something else, I don't know. You don't need it. And the Bushwhackers, for me personally, never needed tag team titles to be over
No.
or popular.
No, and like I said, even if they did, they wouldn't have had them for long, and maybe it was just to push something along, but didn't happen. But you mentioned the Nasty Boys, and I always thought that if the Sheepherders, if they were in that form of a tag team in the WWF, there would have been some hell of a matches, some hella matches, if with the Nasty Boys and the Sheepherders, if it was the original Sheepherders that we saw,
Right.
because the Nasty Boys, they were stiff as far as they loved mixing it up in there, and you're throwing trash cans or whatever you got going, and boy, they laid it in. They had wars with the Warriors, the Road Warriors, that is legendary. The
Mm-hmm.
matches that they would have, they would beat the living hell out of each other. We could have seen those same matches if the Sheepherders were the Sheepherders prior to arriving at the WWF, but that wasn't the case
Right.
where they were, and all the boys knew that how things were done now, and they made those matches work. But I always wondered, man, I just like one night, just let them loose, just let them loose, let them. Maybe it would be a house show or something like that. Let them
I
juice,
wonder
let
if that's
them.
out there somewhere. Like, there's got to be somewhere they were like in this
Yeah.
random town that they could just go crazy.
Yeah, just kind of back to the old days. I'm sure they did miss that because they love to scrap. I mean, you go back and look at some of these matches, and they weren't pretty, but boy, did they just they bang. Oh my God, it was something to watch in these matches. I would have loved to seen some of the stuff they did in Puerto Rico too, when it was just
It's got to be somewhere.
oh my God,
There must be
the
archives of it,
items used,
somewhere. But I know
yeah.
the weapons they were using. Though it's funny because in '91 you had the tag team titles match against the Nasty Boys, but at that Royal Rumble in '91, there's this famous moment where the Bushwhackers are both in the Rumble finally. They weren't in 1990,
No,
but in '91. Well, Luke comes down, he's doing the march. He
yeah.
gets in the ring, he gets thrown right out, and then he just marches back
I
to the stage.
think it was 4 seconds, but that
Yeah, he
record
held the
stood
record.
for,
He held the
yeah,
record until Santino Marella
yeah.
pulled it off, I think. So, or the Warlord
And I
held the
think that was
record for
kind
a
of a
long time as
salute
well.
to, yeah, that was kind of a salute to the Bushwhackers. But
It was so good.
yeah, and that would always be in the promos every single year.
Yes.
And I know that Luke laments that I don't know when it was. I think maybe 2018 or something, they stopped putting it in, and he was very upset because he
Oh,
loved he loved the that being in those promos, and everybody would say to him, "Well, I saw this, when they remembered that moment forever." And I remember the guys in back when they you hear the stories about when he went out in 4 seconds, they like lost it. Like they just
it
because he
was so
doesn't miss a
funny.
beat, lands on the floor, marches right back
Yep.
out.
Doesn't even stop. Doesn't even stop. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
the Warlord had a record for a long time, and then
yeah,
Bushwhacker Luke, I think it was like the second shortest, and then Santino went like
yeah,
some crazy. But that was one of the best highlights of Royal Rumble history of just
yeah,
coming down, thrown out, doesn't even skip a beat. I'm gonna keep walking back. I'm just gonna keep doing
yeah,
this. Like
yeah,
no big deal. And that to me is one of the most hilarious moments
yeah. So
of
anybody would ever thought that Luke and Butch were, in any sense of the word, demeaned or humiliated or felt they laughed all the way to the bank, as they say,
course.
that they knew what buttered their bread when it came down to it, and there was never a regret for them saying, "What, well, man, I can't believe we got to do this. It's so demeaning." And that wasn't the way they ever looked at it. They looked at it like it's taking care of our families, and it's a great gig.
Of course.
How much fun is that? Everybody talks about they love being a heel, absolutely, because you can just do and say whatever you want. But there's also a pretty cool part of it that everywhere you go, everybody loves seeing you. Everybody wants to get near you, and and
Being licked
and
by you.
and having that impact on kids. That's what it was back then. They were featured in cartoons and everything. So for them, they look at that opportunity as it was the greatest thing that ever happened to them in their careers, and extended their careers for a long time in the to I think they left in 2001, finally, and that's something. That's really something, and even Vince didn't want them to go, so they just had to take different opportunities. But to have a run like that is just amazing.
Well, I think 2001 is WrestleMania 17, so they came back for the gimmick battle royal. They
Yeah,
were in
yeah,
they were in and out of the company over years just because of
yeah,
ambassadors or whatever. But their longevity is definitely there as a character and a group that you remember forever. Though unfortunately for them, also in '91, they're teaming up with Tugboat, and Tugboat turns on the Bushwhackers, and they're fighting Earthquake,
yeah,
and this begins the formation of the natural disasters where Typhoon is born and Tugboat is now dead. Poor Bushwhackers, but this is a monumental moment. But yet, remember that rumor that Tugboat was going to be Sheik Tugboat and fight
yeah.
Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 7 as an Iraqi sympathizer? And now, instead of being the main event of WrestleMania, now you are no longer Tugboat. You're going to be Typhoon with Earthquake, which again, I love the natural disasters, but going from main eventing WrestleMania to being a tag team, I feel like is a little different than what you expected originally.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it wasn't just necessarily a rumor. That was a discussion that they were going to move Tugboat into that situation. And then they just realized how, I don't think people are going to
Look
buy
at
this.
Sarge.
But it was part of the discussion. But it just shows you then, um, you know, what was going on with the company at the time. So, these guys, as far as like I said, what they're finally left, and or like they came back, but that period of time that they were there, were to have that mix and still getting very good pushes here and there with different tag teams was really amazing. So, but it was, think of that period of time too. That was a really tough time in the WWF.
91, yeah.
Yeah, and so the people that it was starting to be, I'm saying,
Yeah,
by the
yeah,
time
things
by
change. Yeah, yeah.
95 rolled, it was like, man. So yeah, it was tough times there, and you could see things started to happen. But the Bushwhackers, just
Still
tremendous.
loved. Yeah, they were
Yeah.
still loved. It's just nuts to think that we went from Tugboat, now we have Typhoon, natural disasters. So that sets up SummerSlam 91. The Bushwhackers have Andre the Giant, who's unfortunately on arm crutches, and he's at ringside against the natural disasters. Originally, they were trying to plan out an Andre Earthquake match, but clearly Andre is not physically able to do this. The man's on crutches. And this would be one of the last appearances of Andre in the WWF. We would see him appear once in WCW, and then he'd pass away. But it's just so sad to see that you get the Bushwhackers, everything's great, then you have Andre with them, and he's no longer the Andre that we remember.
No, not at all. So I said it was, this was when it's kind of like the WWF started to go into the wilderness, that they were, trying all these things, and then they have to go back and bring people in to try and get the house gates up.
Mm-hmm.
And like we said, they have to bring, Andre back. And, we talked about Andre before, where it wasn't that he didn't want to, Andre wanted, that was his life, his family. But it was the idea of like, why are you put, we've discussed this before, why you put him out there? Because they needed him. They needed to have people out there to help draw some of these crowds. And this is where you really started to see the decline. And then you also start to see guys leaving. They're starting to get other opportunities down south. And so, yeah, then you're kind of creating these situations. And pretty much all Andre could do is maybe get up on the apron. That was brutal for him to even do that, and
Right.
then just kind of lean over the ropes, and they would bring somebody over, and he might lay a forearm across their chest or something. But yeah, this is where you're seeing a lot of that, and not long before, it's the rest of the tag team stable is suffering for it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Tag team
it's
division fell apart in 91. Like
yeah,
there's no doubt about that where you have Bushwhackers, you have Natural Disasters, you have Nasty Boys, but the Heart Foundation is splitting up. The Bulldogs have been gone for a while. Demolition fading away. Legion of Doom is sort of in and out. Like there is a decline from say
yeah,
87 to 91. It goes like this.
yeah,
And nothing against the tag team divisions. I love the tag team matches, but we used to get like 3 or 4 on a show, and then suddenly we went from maybe one, maybe two. Like it completely changed the aspect of the division. And then the Beverly brothers come on in 91, and they started a rivalry with the Bushwhackers as well, because again, how are you trying to get teams over? Even the Orient Express, how do you get these teams over? Have them fight the Bushwhackers, because everyone loves them, so you can get some heat. But while the Bushwhackers, they go against the Beverly brothers have the genius. Well, the
yeah.
Bushwhackers need someone to counterbalance this, and we get Jameson, who was the guest co-host of the Bobby Heenan show when that existed for only 4 weeks. Jameson, what you interviewed him? What's his backstory here? Because does it really involve like dinner theater?
Yeah, I mean that's where Vince found him. Vince and Linda, they love to go to dinner theater and that
Did
kind
they
of thing.
really?
Yeah, Stanford was, I described it before as Camelot, and Vince McMahon was kind of the king there.
Wow.
And it wasn't. It still isn't a giant city, but it's this. It's an hour basically north of New York City, and a lot of corporate people had moved up there. The corporate headquarters at some places had moved up there because it was so close to the city. You're still near the airports, but you're not paying the kind of money that you pay when you're in Manhattan. But anyway, what's unusual, I'd be out at a movie with a date or something, and I would run into them. They'd be out
Wow.
going to the theater or something like that, and Vince, they would go to a lot of functions around there, and they went apparently to one of these mystery dinner theaters one night,
Hmm.
and Jameson was one of the characters, and for some reason Vince found him very amusing. Just thought he was great, and maybe we could do something with him, and brought him in. Uh, he knew nothing about wrestling at all,
Oh, wow.
really, and he had this cross. It was kind of a cross between like Jerry Lewis and
He
Wally
was Jerry
Cox, and
Lewis. He was
yeah,
100% Jerry Lewis.
yeah. Hey,
Oh
hey,
boy, oh
yeah,
god, I don't know what's
yeah,
going
yeah, and the
on.
nerdy glasses and
Yeah,
the
the tape.
and I think that was the character that he was playing at the dinner theater. Jameson was an actor. He did a bunch of characters, and the character Jameson was one of them. And Vince thought that we've got this nerdy guy who could be a foil for people, and brought him in. Really nice guy. He was just fun to be around, and could roll with anything. but didn't know anything about wrestling. And so he had a tough time of it because he had to work with these guys, right directly. And people were very wary of, and some didn't think he was funny but as far as it's funny because you're talking about all these things that were going on. Here you got the genius, love Lanny, but the
You're right.
genius was
All right. Yeah.
it's just like this all this combination of what Lanny was gifted with. I mean, he was a hell of a worker. He was a pafo. He grew up in it. But the whole thing with like the him being so flexible and he could do poetry and we'll have him in a cap and gown. It just
Gown.
was like whoa, wow, a lot of stuff going on in there. And he is Randy's brother.
So we
And then
have
you
to
got
keep him.
Jameson. Like we're getting to the ridiculous. It wasn't. Um, and it was just the sign of the times. It was what was happening there.
Hmm.
But it everything started to, uh, as you mentioned, like we kind of have this decline going, and you could just see it, the quality of stuff, what was going on. And as I look back, I remember me thinking this, like, what's going on here? People always ask me, like, why did you leave? Well, I was starting to go, like, what's going on here? Are we on the way out?
Right.
Um, Not realizing I hadn't been around the business that long that it's cyclical. It goes up and down. But this was kind of scary, and especially the rumblings of everything else that was going on, and with the legal problems, and you're thinking, okay, what the heck? And then you've got guys starting to defect and go down south, and even the Bushwhackers talk about that. They got an opportunity to go down there, and they were very loyal to Vince because of the opportunity that he gave them, and during these years here, they stick around and probably missed some opportunity to go down there and really make some money. And they say that when they finally did have a chance to go down there, Bischoff was like, "Well, we wanted you then. Now it's and we'll pay you this, but not what we were going to pay you." So they
Right.
totally missed that opportunity, but their standing with the WWF never changed. To say they brought them back in 2001 because of that loyalty, the recognition of saying, hey, we valued what you did, and you stuck, with us through all that. But it cost them, that in the end, where they probably could have gone down there for a while and made a lot of money and maybe even come back then. But it's all about timing. But this was not. This was the beginning of some really, really difficult times. And you're seeing the caliber of people that they're having to put in the ring. They're grasping, and they're having to bring Andre back on, those
Crutches.
crutches. Yeah, it was a tough time for sure.
Well, they were trying to tease that Andre Earthquake match, and I don't think they really understood how severe Andre the Giant's like
Yeah,
real injuries or back was. Like, oh, he can work a little bit. Like, dude,
no.
no, what are you doing?
Which
So
kid, he's going
yeah,
to hit him with his crutch? Like,
right, yeah, that's what he pretty much did, and
yeah,
they were still trying to tease it. Like they were thinking, we can do this. Like,
yeah,
no, no, you can't. Bushwhackers are here. Let them fight the natural disasters, which again they did. And then in the '91 Survivor Series, the Bushwhackers are with the Rockers against the Beverly Brothers, and the Nasty Boys. This is where Marty accidentally his foot hits Sean, and then the Rockers break up are starting to happen more on television. The Bushwhackers are just there to make sure the Rockers get eliminated, so the bad guys can kind of win the match. It's not the best Survivor Series. We've talked about it in '91.
yeah.
It's interesting. It's a commercial for this Tuesday in Texas. But the Jameson genius dynamic really just blew my mind when you're like, we got a guy to cap it down, we got this guy, Jerry Lewis, and we're just gonna continue this. And
Yeah.
they do. Royal Rumble '92, Beverly Brothers fight Bushwhackers again. But this is really what I feel like is kind of the end of the Bushwhackers. We're on TV every week, we're on pay-per-views, because WrestleMania 8, they don't wrestle on the actual card. They're in a
Yeah.
dark match against the Beverly Brothers. SummerSlam '92, same thing. Dark match. Why do you think they suddenly were on the back burner? Is it because they were part of the standard golden era and we're trying to move into a younger audience?
Yeah, but it was just it had run its course in a lot of ways. What else do you do with them?
Right.
They were, and these kids are getting older. The ones
Started in
they when they
88.
first got there are aging out in a sense, and it's like anything else. At some point, you've got to evolve and offer something else, and that was kind of it. Right? I mean, you can only do this for so long, and I said it was a hell of a run. It really was, and that popularity. You know, in the singles, in the singles competition, you could liken it to hacksaw. You know, that Jim had his, the two by four, and people love him. And people, it wasn't that people stopped loving the Bushwhackers. It's just that, okay, yeah, seen it. And they
You
were
mean that?
kind of
Yeah.
getting to that point where, yeah, they weren't in that at that level anymore. But at the same time, it was also a sign of what was going on with tag teams. I mean, seriously, the Beverly Brothers. Now, those guys are talented wrestlers, but did you ever get what the Beverly Brothers were about? I mean, who were they?
Honestly, I'm so happy you
Right?
asked me that question because earlier I was thinking about it. Like, what
What
were
was
they? They wore these purple robes,
Yeah?
and they looked great in the ring. But
They
what was
rich
their
Hollywood kids. What were they? What
what
was
was their
their
gimmick? They were also
Yeah?
smart, maybe like the genius. Like I don't know.
Never got it.
They
But
were
that's
from
but I
Beverly.
Yeah, but I think that's just showing you what and not just the caliber of talent they're bringing in, but also the storylines were weak. There was just no
Oh God,
where was the heat there?
dude,
You got to,
92
in order to
tag
have good
team.
runs, you got to have heat. So one way or the other, you've got to generate that, and it wasn't. It was just okay. Sounds like it'd be good to be good have them in the ring, but I don't care really. Hope
No.
it's a good match,
I,
and that doesn't sell tickets.
No, the Beverly Brothers have a crazy ass finish that they had to stop doing because they were hurting people. They get you in like a flapjack, and the other one would come down and would hold your head and just slam
Yeah,
it into the ground.
yeah.
But if you're at the wrong angle, you're just gonna pretty much screw up your back and get hurt. So that finisher stopped, but it was a good finisher. So
Yeah.
that's all they really had. But you're right. What were the Beverly Brothers? And I think we talked about it before on our Survivor Series 92 podcast, where I watched all of the Superstars episodes from 92. The tag team division, honest to God, every vignette is Jimmy Hart is your manager. And he's working angles on every one of his teams because they all want to be the tag team champions. Money Inc., Nasty Boys, Natural Disasters, all Jimmy Hart. Then
Yeah.
Disasters and Nasty Boys turn babyface because they're sick of listening to that. You got Beverly Brothers, you have Bushwhackers, LOD's having problems, so they're not really there. That is your 1992 roster. About
Yeah.
5 tag teams versus before we had like 15 tag teams.
Yeah. And Jimmy Hart's carry-on bag was a little fuller because he had to bring more jackets. But
Megaphones,
yeah, I remember he
pants.
had jackets for everybody. But yeah, it's weak. It was a sign of the times that tag team era when we had all of these great tag teams and great rivalries was clearly waning. But it was like everything else that was going on then too.
True. They did bring in the head shrinkers towards the end of the year of 92. They start working with the Bushwhackers as well. But again, the
Mhm.
Bushwhackers are putting everybody over. And then they even
Mhm.
introduce this is when I usually look at wrestling and go, oh, we're in trouble here. Because it's the Bushwhackers and Tiger Jackson, a little person, versus the Beverly Brothers and Little Louie. So
Yeah,
now they're doing house
gimmicks.
shows with gimmicks to fill in the gap of, and nothing against this. This is even when the WWF brings back women wrestling in
Yeah.
93,
No,
94.
that's
And you're like,
exactly the point. Yeah. That was the point
you're
I was
doing
going to
exactly what
make.
we're doing in the 80s.
Yeah, because I remember when business got slow, they bring in the midgets,
Yep.
bring
Bring
in
in
the
the
women,
women.
and this folks, of course, was before we saw divas, and they were a novelty
Mm-hmm.
that they would bring in. That these for the most part, most of these women wrestlers weren't should I say lookers?
That's a,
I mean, Rockin'
it's a
Robin was
kind word.
cute.
Yeah.
You know,
Sherry
uh,
Martel, Judy
yeah,
Martin, the Jumping
yeah.
Bomb
But
Angels. Yeah.
overall, they wouldn't, as you would
No,
describe, as
they weren't
the
Trish.
they weren't
They weren't Trish
modeled like,
Stratus.
yeah, yeah. And so, but that was when you saw that happening, when they started bringing the guys in from Pennsylvania, the little guys, because they had a camp there. I think that was what it was.
Wow, really?
Yeah, yeah. It was out in the woods. That's where they trained. That you knew things were a little weak when they're starting to do that. So
Yes.
hard times, hard
Hard times,
times.
as
Yeah,
Dusty Rhodes would say. Hard
yeah,
times. It gets
hard
even harder
times.
though because the Bushwhackers are barely on TV in '93. They have some matches with this team called Well Done, and yeah,
Yeah,
tell
I
me,
mean, oh God,
remember
like
them? No one remembers them. They even had matches with the Heavenly Bodies, another tag team. That if
Heavenly
anyone
Body, yeah.
tries to tell me that they were like, oh, I really like them. Tell me your favorite Heavenly
Heavenly
Bodies in
Bodies, yeah,
Well Done match. I'll wait forever
yeah,
because you don't
yeah,
have one. So I'm just saying, gets a little crazy. But Survivor Series '93, it's the last pay per view in the Boston Garden, the original Boston Garden, because they rebuilt it and Fleet Center and all these stupid names. It's supposed to be four Doinks versus
yeah,
Bam Bam Bigelow, Bastion Booger, and the Head Shrinkers. Well,
yeah.
we've had two Doinks before at WrestleMania 9. How do we have four? As a child, I'm looking forward to this. Four Doinks. They had two. They're going to have four. Well, they don't, Mooney. They have Men on a Mission, Mabel and Mo, and Oscar, who is their rapping manager, dressed up as Doink. And the
Okay.
Bushwhackers get a payday, and they get to dress up as as Doink the Clown as well. In the match, the pinfalls are slipping on banana peels, biting what you think is an apple. It turns out there's water. It's a water balloon. Hitting someone with a turkey carcass. And then we pig pile on Bam Bam Bigelow with five people on Bam Bam to pin him for the finals.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, I was gonna say, need we say more? Uh, when that's what's happening in there, things are not going well. And so you can understand the frustration for everybody, the boys and everybody. This stuff is going on, and it's like, what is going on here? What's happening? And this is a period of time when I just think about there just was it was directionless. They didn't really know what to do. They had brought in a writer uh, and to come up with some of this stuff, and it was kind of ridiculous. But they didn't know what they're doing. It was like flailing. And I think even, Vince may not admit that, but I think even he was thinking like, what the hell? And uh, he couldn't compete with what was starting to happen down south, that he couldn't say, all right, I'm going to guarantee money, and especially when it's not coming in.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have a mega corporation that didn't know they were being fleeced, and he couldn't do it. He couldn't even compete. So these guys are going. When he got on the phone, they said, I got an offer to go down there. He couldn't even say, okay, what can I do to make you stay? Because there was nothing he could do about it. He couldn't, guarantee a few $100,000 to these guys. It
No,
just wasn't going to happen. And he
no,
couldn't set that precedent. Once you do it, it's
everybody.
done. You don't go back. You don't put that car back in reverse. So you can imagine a lot of sleepless nights besides everything else that's going on in his life. Uh, but then at the same time, then you can't compete against a rival that you know is got they've got the tiger right now, and you can't stop it.
No, no, you can't. But at least the Bushwhackers are getting paid to dress up as Doink the Clown.
Yeah,
They
man.
they also got to appear on which, if you remember, TGIF. Thank God it's
Mhm.
Friday on ABC was the biggest thing in the '90s, and Family Matters was one of the
Family
biggest
Matters.
shows at the time with Urkel.
Yeah,
Urkel, did I do that?
yeah,
Good stuff there. Good stuff. Did I have the
yeah.
Urkel doll? None of your business. I do, and still have it somewhere.
Oh man,
But the
and he admits it. He
Bushwhackers.
admits it, folks.
I said I didn't. The
Did you
Bushwhackers,
have
though,
an
appear.
Alf and what was the other
I
gimmicks
do
that
have
they
Alf.
Alf? Okay.
I
Yeah, of
used to
course.
hide my marijuana in there when I was in high school.
Oh, gee, too
But
much, too much
hey,
information.
hey, well, you asked. You don't. I'm like a jukebox. Don't put a quarter in me and expect no songs to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, the Bushwhackers are on Family Matters fighting Urkel and Carl Winslow, the father, in a wrestling match. And to me, again, it's just fun to see that the Bushwhackers, when we're like thinking of wrestlers, we're like, oh, who can we get? And they get the
Yeah.
Bushwhackers to come in to perform. And to me, that was just, it was great to see as a 90s kid.
Yeah, no, it was cool, and this crossover shows how big they were. That they're appearing on these network shows. So yeah, they were over tremendously, and it wasn't just limited to the WWF, as you just pointed out. That they were fun, and they were all over the place in cartoons, as I mentioned, and just very popular with the kids, and
Even the
and
White
they loved it.
House. The White House
But
invites the
yeah.
WWF superstars, and you're thinking to yourself, like, oh, who should we get? Should we bring in, should I go? Vince McMahon? No, no.
Yeah.
Should Bret Hart go? Man. Undertaker? Nah. The Bushwhackers are there for the Easter egg hunt on the White House front lawn. And
Because
this
who's
is
there?
still a thing that happens in today's world.
Right.
Again,
People
when
people
you're
bring their
brought in for
kids.
this is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, they bring in their people bring their kids. Uh, you know, maybe Hulk was not available.
Doesn't
No,
work for me,
but
brother.
but like you said, as far as who's going to entertain the crowd, who's going to fire them up, that Bushwhackers were a big crowd favorite, especially among the kids. And I'm sure it was a great honor for them to. Can you imagine these two kids from New Zealand and all the roads that they had traveled, and they end up at the White House. Um, Pretty
From
cool.
from bleeding out in Puerto Rico
Yeah,
as a sheepherders to now
barbed
we're on
wire
the lawn
matches.
looking
Yeah,
for eggs
yeah. So
of the White
hell of a
House.
run. Like I said, a hell of a run for these guys.
They just keep popping up though. In '94, they're for there a little bit. '95 Rumble, they're in it. The '95
Yeah,
Rumble is filled with just like people who don't exist in the company a year after that.
yeah,
'96 is kind of their final run. They're in the tag team tournament to crown new champions. They lose to the Body Donis, Skip and Zip. Sonny's there as well. But
yeah.
yet, that's the end of the Bushwhackers. You mentioned they don't go to WCW
No.
after their run. They actually go to ECW for a brief period where they're supposed to be Butch and Luke Dudley, the relatives of the Dudley Boys in ECW, and of course they do their independence. They're part of one of the worst wrestling pay-per-views of all time. Also, they're part of a lot of things after the run. But in 2001, at WrestleMania 17. They had the gimmick battle royal where Brother
Yeah.
Love's there, the Iron Sheik, and the Bushwhackers. But Mean Gene and Bobby Heenan are on commentary because WCW was purchased 7 days before this event. So we have a lot of WCW wrestlers sitting in the nosebleeds, but we
Yeah.
also have Mean Gene and Bobby involved there as well. So it was a great night for a lot of wrestling fans who miss seeing the classic Golden Era people together one more time on the biggest stage of them all. Iron Sheik won that battle royal because, according to rumors, he couldn't physically go over the top rope. So he won because he couldn't go over in
No,
reality. So
it's to stay in there. But like that 2001 was to me it was just kind of a tip of the hat to them to say, we will not we won't forget what you guys did for the WWF, and
of
and
course,
and the fact when you brought back like that, and you know Butch was I think already starting to have some health issues, and so they would still do a lot of independent stuff after that. But they mentioned there were their travels along the way. They said that they missed that opportunity to go to WCW and maybe make some big money. They talk about earlier in their career they blew a chance to stay with the NWA. They went to Puerto Rico instead, and lost. They got left in the Crockett left them in the wilderness for 6 years because he was pissed that they left. But overall, when they look back, I'm sure that they felt very blessed, and they don't have really any criticism against Vince McMahon, despite everything else that's out there, whatever. But their experience with him is that he gave them a tremendous opportunity, and there's only so many tag teams that are in that top echelon of what they did and their contributions, and it can't be measured with them by the straps that they wore around their belts, around their waists, but what they brought to professional wrestling. And at the time, as far as appealing to a young audience and entertaining people, and the two, boy, they could work when they got the chance. They could really work, and they were, so love the Bushwhackers always. Well, they were just personally great guys to hang out with, and always a blast. And they certainly deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, and just tremendous careers.
Yeah, 2015 put in the Hall of Fame, and
Yeah,
they definitely deserve that. But oh, you mentioned earlier, though, you would go on events with them as ambassadors to
yeah,
promote WWF events. Do you have any interesting stories of that? Like, because these sardines are everywhere for gimmick reasons, but
yeah.
obviously, I'm wondering, have you ever been sardined, or any weird things that happened to you besides being licked on television?
No, and I'll tell you, I hate sardines. I can't even stand the smell of them. And so I always made it very clear that I never, because if you tell them, then you're dead.
Yes.
And they'd say, mate, it calls us sardines, sardines. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to save this one. I got some,
Put it.
like, but they were always a blast. And there's one. I remember what really stands out to me was when the those games that we had, and they were these gigantic things, and they put them in
Oh yeah, yeah.
different places where you would pay a quarter or something to
Yeah, the
play.
arcade
And we
games.
did a big promotional event in Stamford, and they had these machines all set up. And I just remember that when they brought the kids in, that they could let them play, and Kerry Von Erich and the Bushwhackers were there. And I have a picture somewhere in a box, and it's them playing these games with these kids. And they did this for a couple of hours. They were having a blast doing it too. And I just thought, like, this is crazy. Like, here are these guys, and they're just kids. Kerry Von Erich he was always a kid. Like, he had this sweetness about him that he never changed. And the Bushwhackers had that same child playfulness in them, and that's what I think made them so, you can't fake that stuff. And they stood there for hours with these kids playing the dumb games that were plugged in, and they had, five or six of them set up in this room, and that just kind of encompassed who those guys were.
That's awesome to hear. Again,
Yeah.
I'm so glad we got to talk about Luke and Butch, the Bushwhackers, today, because they're one of the greatest tag teams for a lot of fans. And of course, everyone remembers doing
Mm.
this forever. So,
Yep.
again, thank you so much for being here, tuning into Prime Time with Sean Mooney's channel, talking about the Bushwhackers. Remember, when you see a stranger, don't lick them. Don't,
No, can't
don't,
do that
can't
anymore.
do that anymore. But if it's 1988, goddamn, lick away.
Yeah.
Have a good one, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.